that you want to acquire? Is it digital? Is it competencies in your course that you'd like to have when you're done with this particular study? You mention them. So that's what the objective is all about. It could be that you would like to know more by volunteering. It could be that you would like to meet people in your field, global leaders in your field by attending conferences. It could also be that you'd like to meet with other people from different fields from your study to learn from their experiences and all sorts of things like that. So in these objectives, that it's not just about what you want to study. It's also trying to look at not just about studying. What kinds of relationships would you want to build at the end of this study? Because as you're studying, you're making friends both within your field and outside of your field. You're also being friends with your lecturers or lecturers. So what kind of relationship would you want to develop at the end? Is it mutually beneficial? Are they going to be mutually beneficial relationships? Are they going to lead to your personal and career development? Or are you just going to be done with studying and then move to the next phase of your career without developing relationships? Because we all know that relationships are very important in personal and career development. So besides studying and acquiring skills and knowledges and everything, what sorts of relationships are you going to build at the end of it? Okay, so that's what the objective is about. You might also want to mention that, okay, you're being funded by the Commonwealth Shares Scholarship Commission. You might also mention that you want to be an ambassador to them. You want to not like be an ambassador, because there's actually nothing like that in Commonwealth Shares Scholarship. So it's that just like you want to be involved in most of the leadership development activities that is being organized by your sponsor. So it's still a very good objective you might want to throw in there. Okay, then for the short term, for the career plans, we have the short term and the long term. The short term career plan is about what you intend to do after you've studied, after you've now graduated, yes. So what's next? What's next? Short term, within 3 to 5 years, what's next? Where do you want to see yourself after you've graduated within 3 to 5 years? Okay, so this short-term goal should always be aligned with what you're studying. You can't say you want to be a fashion designer in the next 5 years when you're studying public health, for example, or when you're studying transport planning, or when you're studying food security. You can't just, or say you want to be a multi-billionaire in 3 to 5 years. So it should be linked to what you're studying. Of course, we all have our side hustles. We have a lot of things that we combine with our studies, but that shouldn't come in here. Okay, so it should always be aligned with what you're studying. For example, if you're studying public health, sorry, I'm always using public health because that's my field and I'm more familiar with the everything about it. Okay, so but you can just apply everything I'm saying to your specific field of study. Okay, for example, now as someone that is studying public health, you might say that within 3 to 5 years, you would want to work as a monitoring and evaluation expert in this particular organization in your country. So you're not just mentioning that you want to be this in 3 to 5 years. Why do you want to be that? You want to be a monitoring and evaluation expert in your country, in an agency or a public health agency in your country within 3 to 5 years. It's because you want to help to do something. It could be that the public health programs there are not being monitored and evaluated well to know if they're actually achieving their objectives. So you would now want to come in to help to do this. Because if you don't do it, then public health programs are just going to be left unmonitored and they might not even achieve their objectives, and then things just keep going worse. So as you're mentioning where you want to be, you should also mention why you want to do it for your country and how your country is going to benefit from it. So another way to know about these career goals is you can just browse up your course of study. What are the career goals for someone studying this? What are the career goals for someone studying climate change? What are the career goals for someone studying civil engineering? So if you're not exactly sure, you can browse it up. And then some universities also have a place where they indicate where their graduates tend to practice after study. So this could also guide you to know exactly where you should be in your career progression. Okay, that's for short-term goals. And remember, while writing short-term goals, you should be specific. You can if you see, you can you see how I used a specific place that I want to be. It should be specific and should be realistic. It should be specific. So if you can mention the particular thing that you want to do, don't make it too broad. Because if it's too broad, it might pass off like you don't know exactly where you're going. So narrow it down. Don't make it too bogus. Don't make it too complicated, and make it realistic. Let it be something that if someone is really person will be like, oh, okay, it's actually possible, because this is actually where people that study this always end up in. So you should make it straight to the point and very simple. So the next one is the long-term career plan. Long-term career plan is just trying to know where will you be from 5 to 10 years. That's in the long run. Where do you eventually want to find yourself? So this is always, it's always good to explain these ones in a way that you must have been working towards it. Don't just say I would like to be the commissioner for agriculture in my country in the next 10 years if you've not explained how you're going to get there. So it could be that you do want to, after being a monitoring and evaluation expert, I want to find myself I want to get myself into positions where I'll be able to influence a lot of policies in this sector, and then eventually become this. So there should have a plan. It should look like a plan to show that there are really systems that will help you to achieve these long-term career goals. Don't just jump into it. Okay. And you could also go to your school website to know what their graduates for that particular course, where they always go or what they always end up doing in the long run after the study. So I think that's all for what I'm going to present. But I'm going to just share some final tips or some general tips to always keep in mind while applying for not just Commonwealth Share Scholarship, but for other scholarships as well. So the first one is try to keep it. Okay, someone said he missed the example of short-term career growth due to a network. Okay, so what I explained in the short-term career goal is that it should be simple, specific, realistic. Okay, so the short-term career, short-term is always seen as 3 to 5 years preceding your studies. So in these 3 to 5 years, where do you want to find yourself? It should be related to what you're studying. You cannot want to be the minister for transport. You cannot be studying transportation, for example, and you're going to be a fashion designer in the next 3 years. You can always be that, yes, but it shouldn't come into your essay. You should always link it to where you're studying. So if you're studying public health, let me use my field now. If you're studying public health, you could say that in the next 3 to 5 years, I want to be a monitoring and evaluation expert for this particular agency, public health agency in my country. And you shouldn't just stop there. You should also talk about why you want to be this and how is it going to benefit your country. I want to be this because in my country, the public health programs are not being monitored well. So they always end up being half implemented. Nobody follows it up. So I would want to be this so that I can fill this gap in my country and hence lead to better health outcomes for all the public health, most of the public health programs in the area I'm working in. Okay, so as you're mentioning where you want to be, you should also mention how it's going to benefit your country. So that's it for short-term goals. Then you can find information from the website, as I've already mentioned. From the website of your school, there's always a place for where the graduates eventually end up in. So you can find this information from the website in your school. Not all schools have it though, but if your school have it, you can make do with that. If it doesn't have it, you can browse it up online, where graduates of this particular course always end up in. So that's it for career goals. Then the general tips, as I was saying, should be always make it simple, avoid jargons, write like you are writing for a layman that doesn't know anything about your course. And always imagine that the person who is assessing your application is tired from reading lots of essays. So don't make him confused the more. You get, don't make him confused more, because he's probably read up to 50 of them in that day, or maybe less. But just make it simple so that even if the person is tired and wants to just go and sleep, your essay would, attract him to keep reading. And then your essay should be simple, just to spur him to keep reading, or him or her to keep reading. Okay, then start early to prepare. So I think this mentorship session, it came quite early enough. I think you have about 5 weeks left. Start early enough. Always write down ideas, because sometimes ideas of what you write can even come when you're in the toilet. So if you have your phone handy, type it in. Write whatever idea you have, type it in or write it down, because as someone said, the faintest ink is sharper than the brightest memory. So whenever you remember something that you think might sound good in your essay, just write it down. Okay. Then let your essay flow logically. Always let it flow. All the headings should flow with others. The previous should always flow with the preceding. And then all the paragraphs should also flow logically. It should not look detached, as if you're talking something else here and then you're talking something else there and writing something else there. Everything they're all different subheadings, yes, but always try to make them interconnected. Okay, then when you submit, don't wait for a while before submission. Don't wait for the last minute, the last hour. We still have a lot of time now. You can submit the day before, because in the days leading up to the deadline, the website, the portal gets really busy, and might not want to lose that after having invested so much time and effort. Okay, so if this is your first time of trying, or if this is your second time or your third time, fourth, fifth, sixth, don't beat yourself up. It could just be that it's not you. It might not be you. It might not be the problem. It might just be that at the time that you applied, or that year that you applied, someone that applied for the same course with you just had something ahead of you. Just a little edge ahead can mean that you might not get a scholarship. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It could just be that that person was there. And then according to the person assessed, according to people assessing that, they might have seen that, oh, this person has more advantage. And even if it's just one tiny little bit of advantage, doesn't mean that you're not good enough. So don't beat yourself up. You keep working, keep developing yourself personally and career-wise. If it's not your first time, what you should ask yourself is, as I'm applying now, is there something that has raised my chances more than it did the last time? Has my personal and career development moved just a little bit higher than what it was the last time? So the more you try to improve yourself every day, the better your chances. And then with good mentors and with the grace of God too, the success will be yours. Me, personally, I've applied for, within 2 years, I've applied for up to 30 scholarships. It might sound impossible, but it was done. And in the times that I was doing it and I wasn't getting results, it felt as if I wasn't, at the point I asked myself if I was really good enough, like, what's all this, even with the best good results and everything? So what's happening? But I kept, because I believe that with every failure that I had, I learned something. So I try to apply whatever I've learned in the next one. And if I failed again, I tried to even apply it. So I just kept doing it. And then it was like putting a dent on those ceilings that prevented me from getting it. So the more I tried doing it, the better my applications were. And then with good mentors, and the grace of God, I was able to make it. So in your applications, I wish you all the very best. You can always reach out to Ejiro, because she's on Facebook. Okay, I'm also on Facebook. A lot of other hosts are on Facebook too. So if you have any problems while applying, you could always reach out to them, reach out to us for assistance. Thank you and all the best.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you, Chinelo. I'm having poor reception at my end, so that's why I turned off my camera. So thank you so much, Nina. That was really awesome, and we apologize once more for the conversation for those of you that got affected. So before I proceed to the next speaker, we have Joshua with us. Joshua Fasonya is our sign language interpreter. So I want to say thank you for coming to be with us today. And we also have another interpreter. They are called Speaking Fingers Network. So you'll be seeing her next. Her name is Madam Treasure. So we hope that as we all listen to the next speaker, we'll learn a lot. So joining me again is Dr. Tim. He's also a public health master student at University of, I think, Liverpool. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. So we're taking us on development impact statements and also personal statements. So please just any questions you have, drop them on the chat, and join us. Welcome, Dr. Tim. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. It actually was moved to the attendees list, so he'll be joining us soon. So please bear with us.
Hi guys.
Dr. Tim, yeah, thank you so much.
All right, can you hear me? If you can hear me, please indicate. All right, that's great. That's fine. So just like Ejiro said, my name is Divine Tim. I'm a medical doctor from Cameroon, and I'm currently studying a master's in international public health at the Liverpool John Morris University. I got the 2020 Commonwealth Shared Scholarship. And before I start, she also asked me to do something before I go into the presentation that I have, to talk for a few minutes, maybe 2 or so, about my Commonwealth journey from application. And it's an interesting one because I'm sure so many people who are attending this session have a similar story to mine. So many of you must have applied several times, many times, and you might probably be thinking that it's not possible to get it, just like the first presenter said, Chinelo. And when I was applying for the scholarship the first time, I was virtually lost. I had no direction, although yes, I wrote some essays and gave some people to proofread for me, but I did not actually understand what the essays, what the questions required from me. And I just answered them with maybe no guidance. And at the end of the day, I received the numerous, as we term them, love letters from the different universities. And it's frustrating when you get those things, and it gets you to ask some questions to yourself. You start asking yourself, what did I not do? What did I do wrongly? What could I do? What could I have done to make it better? What approach can I use if I'm applying for the next session? What help do I need? what help do I need if I have to apply, and how do I approach these questions? Chinelo answered the first part excellently. Like, she gave very straight and concise answers. And I think you have to pay attention to that and understand what all of what she explained is all about, because it's like the foundation of your application. And Commonwealth Shared Scholarships is like the most competitive among all the scholarships that are awarded by the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, because we have fewer places. The universities, which are the nominating bodies, they have fewer spots. They have fewer spots than what you have in the general scholarship. And you really need to be on your A game. And to be able to be on your A game, you need to know exactly where you're going to. So I applied 2 years. The first year, all the universities, I didn't even get a single nomination. The second year, I applied again with a little bit more experience and guidance from a lot of mentors. And I got 2 nominations. I got the nomination from my current school and from the Queen's University in Belfast, that's in Northern Ireland. And I chose to take the one where I'm currently studying. So we're going to go into the first part of the scholarship essays, which is like the opening. It's like an elevator pitch. It's the part of your essay that gives the person who is reading that essay an idea of who you are, if what you're going to talk about in the subsequent answers is going to be interesting or not, if the problem that you want to address is a problem that is big enough to be of interest to the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission and its objectives. And one thing that I'm sure Chinelo talked about is Commonwealth Scholarship is based on development, and which means the focus and the approach should be linked to the sustainable development goals, because that is what it's all about. When we got the scholarships, we had the training, and this course that we had online was virtually the application process. You know, you look at the course and it's like, oh, this is where all these questions were coming from. Oh, this is what these people want to hear. And it's all about the sustainable development goals that are linked to the program that you want to study. All right. So whatever program that you want to study, you need to go to the sustainable development goals. You look at the goals that are linked, the different parts that are linked to that program, and try to link it to a problem that is in your country. So the first question says how your proposed study relates to the first part, development issues at the global, national, and local levels. And the second part says development issues connected to your chosen CSC themes and the wider sector. Here, in 200 words, you need to state your problem. You need to give the person who is going to read your essays an idea of what every other thing that you're writing is going to contain. And I'm going to use my application as an example. Just to illustrate. I'm sorry, it's going to be a little bit biased, and it's going to talk a little more on health, but it's not really important. The main thing is for you to understand the concept and what is required. And my application focused on non-communicable disease, which are like the biggest deal right now. You know, before the COVID pandemic, everything was about how do we get rid of non-communicable diseases. And looking at literature, if you read and look at literature and all research that has been published, they will tell you in sub-Saharan Africa, it's one of the fastest rising problems. And it's projected that by 2030, it's going to kill more people than every other thing. Be like, oh, wow, what is my country doing? Nothing. Okay, then let me focus on this. This is one of the SDGs. It falls under SDG number 3. And it is linked to SDG 1. It is also linked to SDG 2, SDG 4. Be like, okay, I think if I have this idea, this broad concept, then I have a case for myself. Because believe me, some other person is going to write on that. Some other person is going to identify that same problem. But now how you tell that story matters. How you link it to your setting matters. So that's the first part. Talk about how big the problem is globally. It might be in finance. You might think maybe due to the current financial structure and how most finance organizations are set up, maybe within the next 10 years, there's going to be some global economic crisis. And because of this, you think your country might suffer more than every other country because of A, B, C, D, and E. And there should be figures that are linked to this. One trick that you should use in all applications that you do, not only Commonwealth, is to quantify problems rather than qualify them. What do I mean? Give a figure to everything. If you qualify problems, it's vague. If you say, for example, in Cameroon, there are no farm to market roads. So because of that, development is slow. Because of that, there is hunger. Because of that, people are poor. It's vague. You understand? It's vague. But if you say, let me use Nigeria now. If you say, maybe in Nigeria, in Imo State, there is just 2 well-constructed farm-to-market roads out of a region of maybe 30 million people, you have just 2 roads that are connecting farm to market. And because of this, the hunger in Imo State, like let's say 60% of people in Imo State live below the poverty line because they cannot have some business, they cannot transfer their crops from the farm to the market and sell them to make a living. Because they live below the poverty line, maybe there is high level of unemployment, there is high level of illiteracy because children cannot go to school. The parents cannot afford fees. You link all of these problems and somebody sees a clear path. Somebody sees the origin of the problem. And just by stating that, the person has an idea of what you might want to do. Maybe in your essay, you want to work with the government to see how you can improve these farm to market routes. And if you're improving farm to market routes, what are you doing? What's the impact? You're increasing people's livelihoods, you're increasing people's quality of life, and you're improving development in your community. If your community develops, your country develops. And if your country is developed, your region is developed, and it's reflected globally. It's a typical example of the little drops, you say the little drops in the ocean, So always have that mind when you're looking at these essays, always have that mind of looking for the origin of a problem and stating clearly that if you tackle this problem from the origin, then this is what is going to follow. If any of you have seen the essays, you see that almost every question is linked. As you move from the first question to the next question, there is a link. Your essays are linked. And from the beginning, if your essays are vague, that link is going to disappear and it decreases your chances, and you're going to lose a lot of points when looking at those. So we've seen the first part of the development impact, and we've touched the second part as well. And the conclusion, to conclude the B part about how it is connected to your chosen theme, this is where you introduce the program that you want to study. That's the last paragraph, should be where you introduce the program that you want to study. So after stating that problem, cardiovascular diseases are the highest cause of mortality in low and middle income countries. But in sub-Saharan Africa, we think by 2030, it's going to be responsible for more deaths maybe than HIV, malaria, tuberculosis. And you give why. That's the next paragraph. You give why or possible reasons for that. And the last paragraph is you introducing your program and how your program is related to that. So mine, like, okay, through a master's in computerized financing, through the master's in public health, through the master's in global health, you're going to get the knowledge, you're going to get the experience, you're going to get the theoretical background to be able to design and implement a particular project that you have in mind that is aimed at improving finance structures, that is aimed at improving roads, that is aimed at improving entrepreneurship, that is aimed at improving law, protection of women's rights, that is aimed at improving maternal and child health, whatever intervention that your problem talked about, you've introduced the problem, you've already said what the course, you've introduced the course that you want to study. And all of this, it's in 200 words. So you have to write extensively. One advice is when you're doing drafts, don't limit yourself to 200 words. Put down all your ideas. When you're reading through your essays, you can start combining similar ideas, summarizing them, using words that can compress a whole sentence into maybe one or two, into a phrase, but keep it simple such that someone who has no idea in your field can understand what you're talking about. The second part of the development impact essay is about how you intend to apply your new skills when you return to your home country. And here, it's in some way trying to ask you about your objectives indirectly. And your objectives are what you want to do with the knowledge that you gain. And that's what they want. You can do it in point form. I did it in point form, so my points can easily be identified. I did not use a block essay. You might use a block paragraph form, but I use point form. I actually numbered them. And you say, after my studies, one, I intend to, whatever you want to do, whatever plan that you have, that is also going to appear in your detailed plan of study and maybe the project, your proposed study plan. You can state it here. What did I say? I intend to collaborate with the Ministry of Health and other stakeholders to lead the implementation of, this is where the heading of the project that I described in my detailed study plan came in. You see, so just the second part of my essay is already introducing another part of the essay that is somewhere right down. And it becomes easy to link all of them when I get there. So when you get there, you have one idea. Consistency is key when you're writing these essays. So you have one idea, that is transmitted through all the answers that you give. All right. Then the second one, what was my second point? So that one was at the national level. That's how I structured it. I structured it according to the country, according to maybe where I work, and I took it to the community as well. So I gave what I want to do with the government. That's at the national level. I gave what I want to do at the level of where I work. I want to use the knowledge to empower. I want to use the knowledge to empower my co-workers and teach them on new and innovative ways to improve effectiveness at work, to improve whatever you want to improve at your workplace or your organization, so that you have a better approach to these problems. And with a better approach to these problems, you have solutions that can be measured. And the impact of this solution is going to contribute toward development. This second part of my answer already introduced another part of the essay. Is going to be expanded in another part of the essay. So this trick, as one of my mentors, he's here, Dr. Valerie gave me, is you have so many ideas and you can get confused on what to do, on what to write, which idea to leave out. Maybe this idea, the number of words might not be enough for me to do this. But if you link all of your answers, you see that you have enough words or more than enough words to portray this idea. All right. So my answers were clear and there was no doubt in what I wanted to do. At the same time, it gave me an opportunity to expand these answers when I got to the preceding questions. All right. So that is what I did on the second one. And the last one, I intend to volunteer, to train volunteers and empower maybe some community leaders. By training volunteers and empowering community leaders, you're giving them the knowledge to be able to teach other people. And this is going to have a ripple effect. So if you teach 100 volunteers how to do something, and each one of these 100 volunteers teach another 100 different people, you discover that the impact of your project becomes big. So you have that ripple effect. You understand? So that's how I approached it, and that's a good way to look at it. Look at how it's going to impact the people around you. Because remember, at the start, you said, if this problem is not tackled, this is going to happen to your community and your country. So this is an opportunity to tackle this problem, and this is how I want to do it. I want to do A, I want to do 2. Maybe you want to set up community sensitization projects, and you need volunteers. You get them, you train them, and they train other people. All right. So that's the second part. That's the answer. What do you intend to do? Simple and straightforward. You have like 150 words to use to answer this part. Then the third part, and another thing too, before, let me not forget. Now we have the power of the media. There is social media that is explosive at the moment. Social media is the source of information to almost everybody. Everyone, about 70% of people who own a smartphone know how to click on the Facebook icon and access information on Facebook. People are on Twitter, people are using IG, people are using different social media platforms. This is an interesting avenue to target when you're giving a proposal, when you're talking about how you intend to use your knowledge. I want to lead social media campaigns. I want to set up campaigns on Facebook. I want to set up campaigns on IG. I want to use the radio. I want to use the TV. State all of these things so that they see that you're actually intentional about what you want to do. You're actually serious, and you know exactly how to get how to achieve that outcome. If you have a few more words, how can social media help? For Twitter, for example, if I do a tweet and I get 100 retweets or 100 likes, everybody who liked that tweet, the followers of that person is going to see that tweet. So if I have 15,000 followers and I like your tweet, it means 15,000 people have seen that tweet. And the followers of those 15,000 people have probably seen that tweet as well. That's how big the impact can be on people. So don't underestimate the power of social media. The third part is what you expect will change in development terms following your studies, including the outcomes that you aim to achieve, the time frame for their implementation. My introductory paragraph was, with the above mentioned interventions, those three that I listed, 1, 2, and 3, with the above mentioned interventions, I expect an overall improvement in 1, cardiovascular disease health. That was my focus. You might want to write on HIV. I expect an overall improvement in HIV care. And you link it to any other SDG. So maybe your SDG says you want to improve HIV care by 90%. So how do you go about, what do you expect to see? It means in your community, you expect 90% of people to be tested, 90% of people to be put on treatment, and 90% of people to be sustained on treatment. That's the overall aim. Here, you must not put the timeline. That's what you expect to occur in your introductory statement. And this is in line with, so let me read what I wrote. With the above mentioned interventions, I expect an overall improvement in cardiovascular health and a boost in human capital for sustainable growth and development. This will be in line with the Sustainable Goals 3, in quotes, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all, and Goal 1, which says end poverty in all its forms everywhere. If you look at this response, somebody says they cannot hear. Is it the same problem with everyone? Can you people hear me? Let me look at the chat. All right. Okay.
I can hear you.
Okay, fine. So if you look at just this excerpt that I read, it's linked to the problem that I stated at the beginning. All right. It's linked to the problem that I stated at the beginning. I expect that my study is going to be used to improve that, and I link it to the SDGs. It could be more than one, because at some point in your application, they are going to ask you to give 3 SDGs that you think are linked to your proposed study. This one already introduces you to the SDGs that you're going to fill down there. So if in your essays you say you're going to improve SDG number 1, 2, and 3, and you go to that part of your application and you write SDG number 2, 4, and 5, they're just going to see that you don't know what you're talking about. So my essay has already given the person the impression that I'm working on SDG 1 and 3. All right, then for timeline, you can use the same approach that Chinelo talked about when you're talking about your career plans, your short-term, medium, and long-term plans. Timeline, it's the same thing. Within the first 2 years of my study, I expect to, 1, reach out to, remember, always use figures. You can be as ambitious as you want. They want somebody that is ambitious. If you want to go to school, if you want to do a master's, to increase or to decrease poverty rates in your community from 30% to 28%. They'll be like, oh, are you serious? You have to be ambitious and realistic as well. Maybe your aim is to reduce it from 30 to 20% within 5 years. State it. Be as ambitious as you can. When you read the SDGs, I'll advise everybody to read the SDGs that are linked to the program that you're applying for. When you read it, you see the target of the SDGs, that by 2025, this is what they want. Your target can be higher than what they want. By 2025, I wanted to reduce hypertension by, I wanted a 20% reduction in deaths from high blood pressure. I wanted a 25% reduction in high blood pressure itself. I wanted a 0% increase in obesity. That's what I wanted to do in 5 years. So have that plan. Look at your study and put it out like that. 3 paragraphs, short ones. Within 3 years, that's the short term. Intermediate, this is what you want to do. You expect that with the results of what you've done within these 3 years, you can advocate for A, B, C, D, and E, depending on what your objectives are. And the fourth part of this is how the impact could be measured. This particular question is linked to your proposed study plan. It's linked to your proposed study plan, because in your proposed study plan, you have a research project that you want to carry out. They don't need the details of it, they just need the objectives. And this is the part where you write, where you give an extension of that research before you even get to the research itself. You understand? So how you give the details of the methods, how you're going to measure. 1, if you want to do a qualitative study, if maybe your project was that you want to excuse me, you want to improve knowledge, this is where you're going to measure. Improved knowledge will be measured by 1, a qualitative survey, or interviews, or focus group discussions, depending on what your project targets. If you want to increase HIV testing, how is it going to be? You're going to do maybe a quantitative study to assess the testing rates or the testing rates of HIV among maybe a particular group. That's how you're going to do. This is where you give the methods in details of what you want to do. That's how it's measured. Then Chinelo talked about the outline and the detailed plan of study. So, and the next part that I'm going to go to is the personal statement. The personal statement gives you an opportunity to express yourself, gives you an opportunity to talk about yourself and try to link your goals, your ambitions, your objectives, your aspirations to your program. So it's that part of the essay that you try to win the person who is reading your essays over. It's that part where you let the person see beyond answers to a particular set of questions. You let the person see the person in you, the passion in you, and your dreams and your aspirations. This is where it is. The first part says, summarize the ways in which your personal background has encouraged you to want to make an impact in your home country. All right. So many people will have so many different approach. For you, maybe you had a traumatic event and that's what inspired you to do whatever you wanted to do. For another person, maybe they wanted to do something else, and maybe along the line you're like, no, this is not what I want to do. I want to do something else. This is what I'm passionate about. This is where you bring it out. All right. So for me, it's health. Why did I want to get into healthcare? Why do I want to get into public health? Why did I not just remain as a doctor in a hospital treating people? So what are your motivations? Why do you need a master's? How is it linked to the experiences that you had while growing up? Or maybe the experiences, sorry about that, or maybe the experience that you have now that you're working somewhere, and how is it going to improve wherever you find yourself? This is the area where you talk about that. And the second part of the essay, it's about voluntary and leadership experience. This is a confusing part because so many people don't know exactly what to write. They don't know what to put under voluntary and other leadership experience. They are not sure what information is valid or what information is not valid. The advice, as Chinelo said, and what I mentioned in the beginning, is you should be consistent. All right, always try to link whatever experience you have to the program that you're doing. Voluntary, you can talk about yourself, introduce yourself. I am an innovative, I am a visionary, I am a passionate, I am a committed person that wants to improve the development of my community by doing this. The trainings that you've had towards that, you can mention it. I am an alumnus of the Cameroon Leadership Academy. That's one of the trainings I had. It's not directly linked to healthcare, but it's linked to leadership and community empowerment. And part of my essays had a part that talked about improving my community by empowering people and engaging youth to be more active, to eat healthy, because I want to reduce high blood pressure, obesity, and everything that can lead to death from non-communicable disease. So I have this training in leadership that I think gives me an opportunity to be able to engage my community and influence them to do something else. So you can use any of those things. Whatever training you have, there's always a way to link it to your experience and to the course that you're applying for. Please take note that don't leave out an experience because you think, I want to do maybe public health, for example, but there is this training that I had in finance, or there's this training that I had in theater arts, this workshop I had in theater arts. How is it linked to public health? Be like, all right, how do you think when you're approaching something like this? The question you're asking yourself is, how can theater arts be linked to public health? What if I can use acting to engage people? You put it here. I volunteered for this event. I volunteered for this acting boot camp or something because I wanted to learn different ways of engaging my community. That's one. And because of that, this is what I did. This is what I did. This is what I did. And this is the impact that it had on people. But the advice, if you have more of experiences that are linked to your program, state it. Leadership. My leadership experience, I started from primary school. You might be confused and you don't know what to use under leadership. Being the lead singer in your choir, or being the financial secretary, or maybe some post in church, that's a leadership position. That's an experience. How have you used it to improve on something? Maybe before you took over, the church people were stealing a lot of money from church. And since you took over, you've seen that the finances of the church have increased steadily from 10 to 20%. That's an impact of you. That is you doing something. All right. whatever you find yourself. In primary school, I was the head student of my primary school. And because of that, I developed some skills that maybe in secondary school, I was more aware of myself and my other classmates, that I would make sure everybody was in line. I would make sure most of the lecturers who were supposed to teach, they came for their lessons. As class prefect, as class coordinator in primary school, in secondary school, that's what I did. And it helped performance of my class. And my class was one of the best because I believe bringing my classmates together, having the very intelligent students help the ones that were struggling, it increased my class average, and we received a prize of the best class in school. Those are experiences that you should state, because here you're going to be in school. You're going to be in school with other students. You're going to have people that are struggling. You're going to have people that are not struggling. And they want to see if you can think out of the box, if you can help other people. If you can demonstrate that you helped people, it means your plans, everything that you've written up, can be achieved because you have a track record of helping people. That's one way of looking at it. You might have been a project leader. You might have been a project director somewhere. How did you use that position to help somebody? How did you use that position to empower somebody? How did you use that position to improve somebody's life? It's very important to state some of those things. How did your position help you do something for the common good? This is the part where you look at others, benefit to others around you, and how you inspire people to be able to work towards a common goal and attain a particular objective. All right, this is very important. This is an important part because it has so many words. You have like 500 words to write this. That's enough to give 2 to 3 or even 4 instances where you've been at a position that you've used your influence to help others. And mind you, leadership does not mean you hold a particular position. No. You could be a team member. You could be working under a manager, but because of your approach, because of your interpersonal skills, you were able to help your other struggling co-workers to understand something and work together with them to achieve a particular goal. And at some point, some people get accolades for that. You might receive a prize or be like, oh, this is staff of the month, this is staff of the week, this is staff of the year. Not because you had that post of responsibility, no, but because you had that ability to get people together and help them to work for a common good. This is where you have enough time and enough space to include all of those. I think we've gone through all the essays, what I've said and what Chinelo said. And an extra part of this is the sections before the essays. That's another important part of the application that you should not ignore. The parts that you have to do before the essays. Publications, you don't need to have published a paper in a journal to have Commonwealth scholarship. My university has 2 other scholars, and some of them have never published any article in any journal. But if you have a blog post, if you have written a post for a newspaper or for a book or for a magazine, write it down. If you've done a post, you've written a blog or maybe LinkedIn or a website or whatever, write it down. Show them that you've been engaged in some form of writing. If it's available online, put the link. They might not open it, but add the link to it. All right. add the link to it. Then there is this other part, distinction and prices. Staff of the month, that is a price, add it. All right. Any prize that you've received, if you were the best student in primary school, put it. I was the best graduating student in my primary school. I included it there. I graduated top 5% of my class. It's somewhere there. I received a scholarship from maybe the president or whoever. I included it there. You can list as many prizes as you have. This here, they're like, okay, this person works hard. This person is ambitious, and it's indicated in the person's distinction and prizes. Employment, just like the advisor they'll give for oil, when you're writing a CV, try to adjust your employment, whatever word you use, to be linked to the problem that you're going to address in your essays. If you worked for a bank and now you're applying for something in health, if there is no link, there is no need putting it here. How is it linked to your project? The reason why I say this, and it's feedback that I got from so many of my mentors, is use the available space that you have to sell yourself and the problem that you want to address. Start identifying the problem right from where you had employment. At work, I was coordinating 5 million people. That's an example. I was treating 5 million people. At this health center in my village, which is the only health center, I was treating 200,000 people. Somewhere in your essay, you're going to say you were in a community where there was only one health center for 200,000 people. You don't have to use so many words because you've already introduced it ahead. And because of this, so many people are dying. And you need to get this knowledge to be able to train other people to assist you and reduce that gap. Instead of 1 to 200,000, maybe if you train 10 other people, it reduces to 1 to 20,000. That's impact. You've identified that problem right from where you work, and all of those and the different things that you've been engaged in. Those are the 2 extra parts that I wanted to touch as well. All your questions in the comment sections are going to be attempted. We're going to attempt answers to those. And we're going to try to the best of our ability to answer all of those. Thank you people very much for being an amazing audience. Unfortunately, this could not be interactive because we had to just talk about so many things and answer questions at the end. And thank you very much to our interpreter. Although the network was not very good, but I'm sure they succeeded in reaching out to people with maybe some form of hearing impairment. Thank you. So I'm going to look at some of the questions. The other speaker would answer as well. Our mentors. I'm sorry, Dr. Valerie, I'm going to call you super mentor because you've been a super mentor to me before me being a scholar, and after the scholarship is to remain one. So the first question that we have here, yes, people, this is recorded and we're going to share the link to this presentation in the group. So many of you are going to be, so many of you are on the group, and for those who are not on the group, we're going to find a way to do that. If you registered, well, we'll sort out the way to let some of you have access to this session so that you can use it after. First question, I hear Commonwealth shared scholarship is biased towards applicants with a first-class distinction. Kindly clarify on this. Whatever scholarship and whatever job or whatever you're applying for, there's always going to be a bias towards the person with the best result. But that is not all. Every aspect of the application has a role to play, has a percentage. I did not get a first-class degree. I did not get a first-class degree. I applied with people who had first-class degrees, but I got the scholarship. That is because my application was stronger than probably the strength of my application was more than the strength of that degree. So focus on writing the strongest possible application and don't worry about having a first class or a second class degree. That's why you have all of these ACs and the opportunity to make a case for yourself. If just the degree and the distinction was important, there will be no need. They would have just said, oh, submit your transcripts and we're going to take the people with the best transcripts and give them the scholarship. No, they give everybody who is eligible a chance to get it and to get the scholarship. The next one, all right, the next question says, if I leave out any question, please, you can type it again. Hi, guys.
I'm here to support you. I think I'm back
all right
now.
Great,
Yeah,
thank
but
you.
just pick up. I'll just say the last question. I'll pick up from where you stop.
All right, okay.
Okay.
So the next one is, I need some clarity on providing a detailed plan of proposed study. All right, I think Chinelo, this one is for you.
Hello. Hello,
Yeah,
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So for the detailed plan of study, it has about 4 sections. Firstly, we'll be talking about the university and the course, and then your objectives for the course. So for the university, you talk about why you chose that university. Is it the best university for your course? Is it the best university based on the ranking? Is it number 1 in the world? Is it number 100? Just basically about your university, why you think that's where you should go, why you preferred it amongst all the universities in the world. Why did you choose that particular one? You can get this information from the school's website, where they'll be talking about their rankings, what they've been doing. So you could get some information from there and then put it down there as why you prefer that particular university. Then for the course, why do you want that course? It could be that the course is, of course, the course is definitely going to help you to get to where you want to. Well, the master is definitely going to help you in your career progression, yes. But what other reasons do you want this course? Is it that there are some study trips that are in this course that will benefit you, that will help you grow? Is it the lecturers there? Is it the experiences they have? Are there particular research groups that is going to help you to get to where you're going? Are there some research groups in your field of interest? Are there faculty members whose research goals or research background is similar to what you want? Things like that. And then the modules too. Are there modules there that you're really interested in? Modules that will help you to gain the skills and the knowledge and the competencies that you want to gain, and also talk about it there. And all this information are available on the university's website. So then for the objectives, so the objectives is like, okay, now you have this admission, you are now studying. What do you want at the end of the study? What do you want to achieve at the end of the study? Now, after you've graduated, what can you now, you can look at yourself and say, okay, now what have I achieved from this program? So it could be those skills that you've gathered from that program. It could be you would like to build the skills in this. It could be you would like to develop grant writing skills, proposal writing skills, digital skills, knowledge about your specific area of interest. It could also be about the relationships you're going to build, making friends within your field and outside of your field. It's not just about studying. What kind of relationships you're going to build? Are there relationships that will open doors for you in the future? Maybe relationships with your supervisors, faculty members, mutually beneficial. They benefit from you, benefit from the voice. So this is what the objective is all about. Okay, have I answered your question?
Okay, thank you, Chinelo, for that.
Okay, so we'll move to the next one.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Chinelo, for that response. And Dr. Tim, I think you will have to continue with the question and answer section, because since I just joined in, I don't have access to previous questions in the chat, not in the Q&A, the normal chat.
All right.
I don't have access to previous chats, so I believe you just if you can take it up from here.
All right. So we'll look at the ones in the chat there before we go to the ones in Q&A.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, please.
All right. So the next question in the chat says, in quantifying problems, do we need to cite literature in our essays? Good. I think that one is for me. Yes, you could have, it depends on how you put it. And my advice is if you don't need to add the citations in your essay, but you don't have to copy and paste. All right, you have to avoid copy and paste. You can say, for example, according to the World Bank, Africa is, you continue, you give those figures, right? You can say, according to the World Health Organization, Nigeria is, you give those figures. So the person that is reading knows that your figure is from the World Bank, knows that your figure is from the WHO or UNICEF or whatever organization or research body that you're getting your information from. According to the Lancet is like one of the biggest publishers. According to the Lancet, this is what we had. So you should give an indication of where you got the figures from, but you must not necessarily cite it within your text, because that is going to increase the number of words that you have, and you have just a small window to give everything that you have to give. That's how you do it. So cite it, but do not copy paste. If you copy and paste, immediately you submit, when you submit your application, they scan it through a plagiarism detector. And by the time they detect any plagiarism, your application is as good as you never applied in the first place. All right. Your application is as good as you never applied in the first place. So do not copy paste, because they are going to scan it. In my university, if you submit an assignment that is similar to what some other person submitted 3 years ago, the software is going to scan it, and they are going to identify that this is where you copied this assignment, and they are going to penalize you for that. It's the same thing with the Commonwealth application. That's why everything is done online, so that they can scan